I want to tell you about something today. Before we get into our lesson, I want to share with you a blessing. Not a monetary blessing, but a blessing, and something that God did for me today that it was just an encouragement. I think that when I tell you that you'll get it, I think you'll understand it. But a man came to visit our church today, and he walks in and Courtney calls my office and says, "There's a Mr. Stewart here to see you." Said he wants to talk to you about our church. And I said, "Sure." So I walk out and I meet him. He says, "My name is Ross Stewart." And I said, "I'm Mark Crockett, and I'm the senior pastor. Come on into my office." And he's 81, walks with a cane. I noticed he has a big scar right here, and find out later he has a stent in his brain. And so we got to talking. He told me about himself. I told him about our church. Told him I had been here 4 years. Told him, all about our church, and that took about 20 minutes. So, and then I had a staff meeting, and I pushed it back to make time for him. And I said, well, the conversation kind of wound down just by itself. And I said, well, I have a staff meeting. So, and he's like, well, I don't want to take any more of your time. I said, well, let me pray with you before you go. So I did. I prayed with him. And then he says, now, before I go, I know you got to go. He said, but before I leave, he says, I want to, and I don't remember all the exact words, but he said something like, I knew some Crockett's one time. Years ago. And he was talking about, and I knew them through Little League football. Well, I played Little League football. So I'm leaning against my desk, just like this, and I'm listening, and he says, and I've just, meeting you today, and your last name is Crockett, and he goes, and these people, their names were Ronnie and Carol Crockett. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And then he says, so about 15 seconds later, he stops, and I said, well, listen, Ronnie and Carol Crockett are my parents. His eyes kind of watered up a little bit, and he said, you got to be kidding me. I said, no. I said, absolutely. So I said, are you telling me, and he had told me in the conversation that he had a son that was 60 years old. Well, guess who else is 60 years old? I said, so your son is 60. Are you telling me that your son played for the J.L. Francis Eagles? He said, yes, he did. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, I am Mark Crockett. They're my parents. That means your son and me played together Pee-wee football. Wow. Right? At age 8 and 9 and 10. A while back, and I mean several years ago, I was going through some things at home, through some old boxes, and I found this picture. I found this little envelope, that had windows where you could see the picture from inside. On this side, there's a picture of a whole team, and that's my team. And then over here is a picture of just me. And I'm holding a football, like this, because I was a punter. And I'm like 9 years old, or maybe 10. I did not want to lose that picture, so I put that in my desk here. And I thought, well, if it's in my desk, I will always know where this thing is. So I said, hold on one second. I'll go back behind, open the desk drawer. I said, I'm going to show you something. I pull it out, and I said, right there's our team. Look, from what? From 50 years ago. I said, it's J.L. Francis Eagles. He said, yeah, absolutely. I said, can you pick your son out? And he couldn't. But I said, now, do you remember a guy named Jimmy? Get this. I said, Jimmy Stewart. Now I went, wait a minute, he's an actor. No. I said, Jimmy, and he said, Jimmy Gibson. I go, Jimmy Gibson, that's right. I said, do you remember a big running back we had he was a beast? His name was Ricky Nutter. Yes, I remember Ricky Nutter. I remember he told me his son's name. So here, and then I said, so you knew my parents. I said, we lived on Brinkwood Drive over off of Orcutt Lane. He goes, I know, I've been to your house. He said, I've been to your house. He said, your parents, I'm pretty sure, have been to my house at that time. I got the chills. He's looking, he's saved, he's been in a Baptist church. He's looking for a church now because the church where he is at is just gone down and, you know, and they have some changes there. And I said, of course, before that, I'm like, well, you just need to come and visit us. Well, now I'm like, brother, you need to be here Sunday. You need to be here Sunday. I said, Mom and Dad are here 3 times a week. Are they? Are they? I said, yes. He said, oh my goodness. Anyway, that was a blessing to me because it was just something that was encouraging. You know what I'm saying? It was just encouragement. I wasn't down. I wasn't down today. I mean, had a great day, but it's like God says, I'm going to do something. And He planned that from forever ago. The Ancient of Times, He planned that event today. So he and his wife, Marie, my parents know him from a long time ago, and he has a nephew that lives with them. The nephew's 65, still works, and he said, well, he says, I mean, if I decide to come here, my nephew will come too. It'll be all of us. And I just said, very interesting that we would cross paths like this. You know, as far as like you're looking for a church, you know, this little snotty-nosed kid that played football 50 years ago that you knew, and my parents, and anyway. So I want you to pray for them, Ross and Marie Stewart. Ross and Marie Stewart. During our prayer time tonight, we're going to do like we did last week. We're going to divide up in groups. And I like the way that went, and we're going to do that for a few weeks now. And so just to give you an idea on that. So, all right, let's get with the lesson. But look, I praise the Lord for that. That's what God does for us. You know, He gives us little things. And I have stopped, since I met with Him, I've stopped several times today and just told the Lord, man, that's unbelievable. I mean, it was just really encouraging because that time, I'm sorry, I can't get off of this, but that time of my life, I have great memories of. I really have great memories of everything in my childhood except the spankings I got. And I got enough for my brother and me. But I do. I just had a wonderful childhood. Everything about it was good. Football was good. I played football from 8 years old right on up through high school. It was just good. And God really, He showed off today. He kind of showed off today by reuniting with some people that of memories, you know, of a long time ago. Anyway, it's good. Okay, we're going to jump back into the Lord's Prayer. And Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 13. I'm going to read it for you. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven. Remember, we talked about Father. That's that intimate relationship we have with God. He's not just a God. He, for the believer, for the child of God, He is our Father, which art in heaven. But He controls everything, and He's omnipotent, yet He has time for us. Hallowed be thy name. And we said that there's nothing that we can do in and of ourselves that would glorify His name. Okay? The way that God glorifies His name, He does it through us. So we have to be willing to allow Him to do that. Now, how does He do that? Everything now after that it ties into how God hallows His name. He does it when we say, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That submission to God, that yielding to His plan, that us saying to Him, look, my focus is for Your will to be done in me and around me as much as you can through me is going to glorify your name. And that's where we finished up last week. Now, verse 11, give us this day our daily bread. And I'm thinking we won't get off it. I mean, we'll just talk about that tonight. But give us this day our daily bread. It seems such an innocent petition or request, okay, for God to feed us. But there's a lot being said here. There is an awful lot being said in this, in that request. Give us this day our daily bread. I believe that this verse teaches us that we need to rely on God for our daily needs. I know we have money. I mean, I've got enough money in my wallet. I don't have a lot, but I have enough to go out and buy a meal, and if my wife was with me, to buy a couple meals tonight if I wanted. But understand that whatever money I have in my wallet, God has allowed me to earn. But for the grace of God, I could be in a hospital tonight, flat on my back. I could be at 60 years of age, I could be in a wheelchair, and I could be a paraplegic. I could be a quadriplegic. But God, through His grace, has given me energy and has given me good health. And He has given me the strength. Look, all good things come from the Father of lights. James tells us that. All good things. So I am compelled to go to God every day and say, I'm depending on you for my needs today. And not just when we look in the checkbook and there's minus signs in there. Not then. When you open the checkbook and there's hundreds or $1,000 in it, you still go to God and say, I'm depending on you to meet my needs, because that money can be gone that fast. If He so desires, He can snatch that right out from under us. When we are depending on that, and we only pray when that money runs out, that's depending on our strength and our ability to make money. And then when it runs out, we go to Him. That's not the way it's supposed to work. We are supposed to have a heart of gratitude and a heart of thankfulness, thanking Him for what He has allowed, how He has prospered me to have this money, and continue every day to say, but I depend on you every single day. Give us this day, today, not tomorrow, today. God fed His people in the wilderness with what? What was manna? Manna from heaven, right? Did he cause it to fall out of the sky, or to appear in the morning, on the dew of the grass, and they were to collect it for the week? No, they were to collect it for when? That day. And if they collected more than what they needed for that day, then what happened to it? What? Yeah, it ruined it. If I'm not mistaken, it turned to worms and, it was gone. God says, no. I will feed you every day. And when God says that, He means it. And don't try to get ahead of the game. No, He says, you depend on me daily for your needs, and I will come through. We see that in the manna. We can manipulate this world, and we can never go to God, and believers do this all the time, and thank Him and depend on Him daily for our needs. And we can look at the checkbook and our savings accounts and credit cards, and we can make do. Do you understand, though, how patient God is with us when we get in that trench, we get in that rut? How patient is God? When God says, I am patient, I am long-suffering, do you really know how long-suffering He is? how gracious. Would you, the way sometimes that we treat God, would we allow our children to treat us that way? We wouldn't. We'd be all over them. We'd cloud up and rain on them. Right? But God says, I'm very patient. I'm very gracious. And I will address this problem in your life, but I'm going to give you every opportunity to turn to me on your own. The Bible says, surely the goodness of God calleth thee to repentance. God says, surely at some point, my goodness, in spite of your lack of honor toward me, your lack of loving me, your lack of thanking me, showing gratitude. Surely the fact that I continue to bless you, which is grace, which is giving to us something we don't deserve, surely at some point you will just turn to me and say, I am so sorry. I am so sorry to have not met with you for days or weeks. So, what does Proverbs 30 verse 8 tell us? Remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. It's a very interesting request. Feed me with food that is convenient. The word convenient here means the appointed amount. So the person that wrote this proverb is saying, I want you to give to me just enough to get me through this day. I want to give me like the manna. Just feed me every day with the manna, and I'll collect what I need for that day, and that means I have to come to you the next day and ask again, and that's called dependence on God. This person says, feed me with food convenient for me. He's saying that depend on God for our needs daily. Our primary focus is to seek Him, Matthew 6:33, and be comforted and content with His provision. Godliness with contentment is great gain. 1 Timothy 6:6. Now I'm going to turn to that. I want to read that for you and kind of highlight a couple things here. 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6. 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. 4. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we will carry nothing out. We're not taking it with us. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. When we seek to be rich, when we are striving to be rich, God says that's a bad pathway to be on. There are some people that God prospers in great ways monetarily, but that's the will of God. That's His choices of who He chooses to do that. And look, to whom much is given, much is required. So when God says, I'm going to choose this couple, by the way, the Carltons, they're one of these couples, they got a lot of money. I'm kidding. Tyler's head snapped up. No. But God chooses, and He says, I'm going to prosper this couple here. But to whom much is given, much is required. And they need to make sure that they, A, still depend on me, and B, that they use that prosperity for my work. Why do you think God has prospered America? It is for the propagation of the gospel around the world. It's not that He looked down. We're not God's people. I mean, we're We are spiritual Jews if we're saved, but as a nation, we are not God's people. We are Gentiles. There's no promises to prosper us, but He has and He did as a country that had the financial backing to take the gospel around the world. To whom much is given, much is required. Verse 5 here in 1 Timothy, verse 5 says, perverse disputing of men of corrupt minds and destitute of truth, supposing that gain is godliness, and it's not. Gain is not godliness. That's what the prosperity gospel is all about. They say that if you're right with God, God will make you rich. And if you will send your money to me, that's seed money. That's seed money. God's going to bless that. And manifold, He's going to multiply it. And you're going to get rich by it. No, He's going to get rich by it. That is out of the pit of hell. And people are falling for it. Look, I hate this stuff on Facebook where these prosperity memes. Look, listen. Let me just tell you this. Don't do two things with me. Don't send me a meme that wants to guilt me into doing something. Because I'm like, I don't get on Facebook to be guilted into something. You know what I'm saying? I just don't go there. And if you've ever done it, I'm not mad at anybody. I know it probably seemed like I was, but I'm not. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do what you're asking. No, what you're wanting is, what people like this are wanting is some positive feedback. Instead of going to God for their comfort, they go to Facebook for their comfort and post things and hope they get a lot of this. Okay, so I don't respond to those, never do. The second one is, and my goodness, please, Clover Hill Baptist Church people, don't put and don't share things that say, if you'll share this within 24 hours, you're going to get a blessing. I'm like, what in the world? Why don't you just get on Facebook and say, I am an incredibly immature Christian? Just make that statement and don't put that meme out there, because that's exactly what you're saying. Here again, we are not depending on God. We're depending on some magical Facebook meme. And that is not true, and none of it's true. And don't tell me that, well, I did it one time and I actually did get a blessing. Well, I don't care. I don't care what coincidence you might have experienced, but it wasn't from God. God was not tied to, well, I better bless them because that memes. God does not operate off of Facebook memes. Okay? No. We need to be content. We need to give us this day our daily bread. We need to go to Him daily and thank Him for the many blessings He gives to us. And we need to remind Him every day that, thank you for the prosperity I have, and please continue to meet my needs every day. Every day. That's what this is trying to tell us. And when we have that mindset, when we have that faith, God is glorified. God's glorified. When we go to Him and look, and we have 401ks that have hundreds of thousands of dollars, not me, but people have 401ks have hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million or $2 million in these investments. Look, that's fine. I'm all for that as long as you leave the church like 50% of all that when you do pass on, and because you can't take it with you anyway. Anyway, you may have all of this, but to have the humble and meek spirit to go to God every day on your knees and say, please meet my needs today. And thank you for the prosperity that I have experienced. And then you go back tomorrow and you say, give me this day my daily bread. I know I have the money, but you are the reason I have the finances, and thank you for it, and I depend on you every day. That honors God. That glorifies God. That hallows His name. Now, Proverbs 30 verse 8 says, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me, the appointed amount to get me through this day. Listen at verse 9. Lest I be full and deny thee and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain. This is the reason why he's saying, give me today. Because if you give me too much, it's going to ruin me. You give me too much, I will be full and I will deny you and I will say, who is the Lord? In other words, I don't need God. I got everything I need right here. Then he says, but don't let me starve either, because then that's going to tempt me to go out and steal. Again, he's saying, give me food convenient. I don't want so much that I get fat and I just deny you and act like I don't even need you. And then please don't make me starve, because then I'll be tempted to go out and steal and to do things and take your name in vain. Remember we talked about that the other day? Taking the Lord's name in vain. Most people think that's using the Lord's name in a sentence with curse words. That probably is, but that's not the main teaching. The main teaching is to say, I belong to you. I'm a Christian. I'm taking your name. I'm a Crockett, right? I took their name. And now for the rest of my life, it is up to me to establish a good name and to carry on the what's the word I want? What?
The gospel.
Well, not the gospel here. Carry on the legacy. Thank you. Carry on the legacy, right? God expects the same thing. But to take His name in vain is to say, I am yours. I am thine, O Lord. And you're mine. I am yours and you're mine. And then you walk out and live a life that totally rejects His holiness. That's taken His name in vain.